This week on Extracts, more like the Turd Reich.
It's the Oops, All Nazis episode.
Welcome to Extracts, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files enthusiastic apologist.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a forever slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is Oops, All Nazis.
We picked these themes so many years ago, you guys.
4 years ago.
We picked these themes during the pandemic.
Yeah, man.
But as we were saying, and as we'll get to, there's kind of no other, at least for the Star Trek one for sure, there's like no other theme you can pick for this one.
For
and
real.
It makes sense for the X-Files one as well. So like,
Yeah.
It's on theme. It's just, 2025. Anyways, this week our boys land on a planet that is full of Nazis. So naturally they infiltrate the Reich and destroy fascism before dinner. Remember when it was normal and good to denounce Nazism and no one tried to both sides evil? My kingdom for this easy end of fascism. Oh, also it's an episode where Kirk and Spock are shirtless climbing all over each other. Truly the episode we need in these trying times.
This one's pretty straightforward. Nazis working at Kinko are Nazis. Just Nazis like all up and down this episode. A truly on-theme episode. It's Kaddish from season 4. And again, oops, they are Nazis who do get theirs in this one, which is really good. Anyway, are you ready for digging in there, Mr. Spock?
I am, but I did not proofread it, so let's go.
Okay, let's do it.
You look quite well for a man who's been utterly destroyed, Mr. Spock.
The Enterprise is on their way to the planet Ecos to investigate the disappearance of former professor and Federation cultural observer, whatever the fuck that means, John Gill. When they enter orbit, they are attacked by a nuclear warhead. Suspicious, especially since the Ecosians, although warlike, and their neighboring peaceful planet Xeon should not have that kind of tech. Which doesn't make sense because how can they travel back and forth to each other's planets if they don't know how nuclear power works? But whatever. Kirk and Spock decide to investigate in their civvies, but before they beam down, McCoy inserts subcutaneous emergency transponders, a type of homing device, into their forearms in the event that they cannot use their communicators. I don't remember this ever coming up ever again in any other track, so it's really just a thing that they do in this one. Clever, clever, Bones. They beam down to a seemingly deserted street where they encounter a Xeon running from his life from ... Nazi soldiers? Kirk and Spock do the old chop and pinch to procure a couple of uniforms, while an outdoor video newsreel shows an Ecosian rally featuring huge crowds shouting Nazi-style slogans and waving swastika emblazoned flags. A female Nazi officer, Daras, is shown receiving a Medal of Honor. The final solution is mentioned, meaning apparently the extinction of all Xeons on Ecos and a prelude to the entire destruction of the planet Xeon. The broadcast ends with the reporter making a Nazi salute to the picture of the Fuhrer, whom the shocked Kirk recognizes as his professor John Gill. Twist. They make their way to the Capitol, but unfortunately Spock still looks like an alien in the uniform and they are caught almost immediately. They are imprisoned and whipped, but Kirk and Spock truly don't give a fuck and act like they are hardly being touched, which enrages the SS officers who plan to kill them. But fortunately, a high-ranking Nazi leader, Eneg, decides to imprison them a little bit longer, which is totally a mistake because they form a rudimentary laze to escape. After a series of chop and pinches, the duo are taken into the Xeon underground where they are discovered by Daras, except, psych, she actually works for the underground. They form a plan to infiltrate the Fuhrer's broadcast, pretending to be a film crew following Daras. This episode is truly Kirk living his theater dreams. They see John Gill, but he appears to be drugged. And you know what that means? Time for Bones to get dressed up. Bones beams down, pissed as hell, right when they get caught by Eneg, that high-ranking guard from before, who imprisoned them, except he doesn't recognize them? Must be a member of the Resistance. They sneak into the broadcast booth, shoot Gill full of stimulants, and use a Vulcan mind meld to ascertain what the fuck is going on. Gill, unfortunately, explains that he initially imposed a form of Nazi fascism upon the lawless Ecosians because he believed that it was the most efficient system of government ever devised. Problematic! Untrue! Apparently, this system worked, sus, until the evil Melicon took over and quote-unquote twisted it into a tool to wipe out Zeon. Almost like the system doesn't fucking work. Kirk pumps Gil full of even more stimulants and convinces him to use his platform to cancel the final solution. Most of the Nazis are like, okay, we're dumb and we don't know how to do anything other than follow orders from the Fuhrer, but Melicon shoots Gil for calling him a traitor. Isaac kills Melicon. I never mentioned Isaac's name before, but he was the Zeon who was running.
He was there.
Yeah, he was the one running from the Nazis at the beginning. So he kills Melicon, and Enig and Doris are like, cool, we'll take over and clean up this mess. Please fucking leave. Back on the ship, the Triumvirate do their little morality discussing flirting thing while totally glossing over the fact that the Federation brought Nazism to space. Space laughter? Question mark?
Question mark.
Okay, so that was a hell of a summary to get through. What did you think of this episode? Complicated.
Very complicated feelings.
Let's start with the things you liked, because I feel like the thing that you rightly didn't like will lead to a longer discussion.
Yes. Okay. The things that I liked were, I really loved the pinches. I loved that they were working so well together, because we've seen it a couple times now.
Yeah.
And I loved that it happened.
This is like late season 2, so they've got their moves.
Yeah. I like that they were so good at coordinating and like communicating non-verbally. And this is just such a good example of that. And I just love that. It's a really well-written episode, and so it's hard because it is good, but also it's Nazis.
Right. I would say, and most of the morality that they talk about is correct and does make sense and like holds up or whatever. And, you know, even they like kind of clean it up at the end. It's not perfect at all, but I do think that, you know, it was a time when it was normal and good to say, you know what's bad? Nazis.
Yeah, for real. It's weird that this is still relevant in the 90s. It's wild.
Yeah, and you know, we talk a lot about how Star Trek often like really tries to do progressive or moral stories, and how oftentimes you can see where their heart is, but they like miss the mark in many ways. And I would say overall, this episode still does hold up in many ways.
I would agree with that. Absolutely. It is weird to see Kirk and Spock in Nazi uniforms so many times. I like that they did it, but it's weird. It feels very weird.
And it's also like, they didn't, as Bobby said when they showed up, they didn't pull any punches. They weren't like, these uniforms are kind of like Nazi uniforms. It was like, nope, here's a swastika.
Yeah, for real.
Here's dead-ass full uniforms.
Yeah, it's wild. Because we saw some of that in Triangle, I think it's called. The one where oh my god, which one is it? The one where Scully punches him in the face. Yeah, the ship one where he tells her that he loves her. They have full
Skinner.
Yeah, and they have like the full Nazi uniforms in that, and it's uncomfortable. And in this, it was just like so in your face. It was fucking everywhere.
And it was so many.
It was like, I wouldn't use the word triggering, but it was like almost overwhelming to see such just absolutely blatant Nazism, because I don't think that that's something that even outside of the times and the horrors that we're living right now, like, I don't think that that's something that people would show in a show right now that's not a, like, I don't know, Cinemax is not the right word that I was looking for, but like a HBO program that does,
at least like not at that level.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like it would not be on television right now, and it's because it is just so fucking overwhelming. But it's also, what's hard about this, and I like about it, is that it is so much closer to the war, that it is so much more relevant. There are so many people who lived through it. And so to be so forward about it is kind of wild to me.
Yeah.
And it's season 2. How late in season 2 is it?
Season 2, episode 21.
And they're like deep in the series too. People are like really connected to these characters, and then to see them in these Nazi uniforms, people remember it. Like that's absolutely wild to me. I like it, but it's also like uncomfortable. It's totally. This is a strange episode to like. That's how I feel about it.
I mean, same for, we'll talk about the X-Files episode. I was like, I think this is maybe one of the best episodes I've ever seen of the X-Files, but it's also like really intense.
Yeah, for real.
And they're like, I mean, there were like repercussions or whatever like that. Like for obviously this episode was banned in Germany until like 1995.
Yeah, for real.
Specifically because of all of the Nazi uniforms,
Yep.
but more specifically because of the line where they call Nazi Germany the most efficient society. And they were
Yep.
like, absolutely not. We'll not be showing that on our television 30 years after the World War.
Yeah, for real. It's I love Germany that they're like, we did this and we need to not do this.
Yeah.
Let's not do this. So
And how we were saying about like triggering the two things. Well, obviously Shatner and Nimoy are Jewish, so that like has a coloring of this episode. This was filmed very close to Hanukkah, and Leonard Nimoy was like, obviously we can shoot this. I want no photos of me taken in this, like no behind the scenes photos, no like I don't want any photos of me to exist in this uniform outside of this episode, because he was like, I'm gonna be at Hanukkah like in public. I don't want like a weird Nazi
right.
outfit to be leaked before this episode airs, so there's no context. Like, do not take a photo of me. And this I read, and this is super fucked up.
No.
The girl who played Doris, her costume originally did not have a swastika on it, and it was added right before filming. And her parents fled Nazi Germany, and she was so offended by this. She said she would not have taken this role if she knew that she had to wear a swastika, and she quit acting entirely after this episode.
Oh, no.
So it was triggering for some people.
Holy shit. Oh, my God.
And she, you know what? After I didn't know that until I did research for this episode. She does a really good job in this episode.
I think she's fantastic, honestly.
And to know that she was so deeply uncomfortable, but she was like, I got hired, I'm going to do my job, but I'm never going to put myself in this position ever again.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And she stuck with it, too. Like, I did some digging. She's got a credit 2 years later that's actually a scene that she's in that's used as a flashback. She does nothing after this.
Oh, my God. That's awful.
Yeah.
Oh, that is truly awful.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I can't imagine how, like, traumatizing that would be to be like, no, thank you. I don't.
That's wild, too, because one of the things that I did like in in the same way that I like this episode.
I think people have enough, who listen to this podcast, have enough media literacy to be like, when we say we like these episodes, it's not like we like Nazism or fascism. Like,
we're not promoting that.
Like the characters we like in this episode. We like the messages overall that they're trying to say. Like, Nazis are bad, period. We chose the silly name of this episode many years ago.
Yeah. Okay, I liked that she was a decorated Nazi and that she was like a high-ranking officer who was being celebrated, because a lot of people do not think about the fact that there were a fuckload of women guards who were pieces of shit who did the same thing. And so I thought it was really smart, especially this close to the war, to include that it's like, it's everybody. Everybody did this.
Yeah.
Obviously not everybody, but like that there were women who participated in this. They weren't just like in the background making sandwiches. Like, they were also murdering people. And so I liked that she was portrayed as a piece of shit, honestly, like from our perspective. Like, she's
until we know the actual backstory.
Right, exactly. And so I liked that she was that kind of plant.
Good foreshadowing, like to show her at first getting honored so that when she shows up in the underground, they're all immediately like,
right,
that girl's a Nazi.
Right.
She's bad. And then I think it's a good twist to be like, no, she's actually part of the underground. We were using her to try and see if you're a rat, essentially. And then her story is so sad, too, where she was like, my dad was really good friends with John Gill, and he saw what was happening in the government. So he started speaking out, and he told me to turn him in so that I could infiltrate. That's so fucked up.
Yeah, dude.
To like be like, my dad's going to die anyway, so he's making the sacrifice so that I can try and save our planet. That's fucked up.
That is fucked up. That's a lot.
That's
a
like
lot
one
to
of those
have on you.
Star Trek. That's like one of those Star Trek like lines where they're like, "Oh, Kirk, he survived a planet-wide genocide. Anyways, do."
Yeah, for real. It's like you were saying too, that I don't understand how they can beam these people up and down. I found that plot confusing. Like the other aliens and the two races and them.
They don't beam each other. They have ships.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't follow that as well. I don't know, maybe because I was trying to take notes that I just like missed it.
The only way you can really catch it is when McCoy beams down, Doris is like, oh shit. Like, she's never seen somebody beam before.
Okay.
So it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have nuclear technology because, like, they have ships that are going from one planet to another.
Yeah.
So they're like sister planets. It would be like Earth and Mars.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
If Mars had life.
Mars may have like that. Yeah, I just found that plot confusing. But I liked a lot of the people in this episode. I thought they all did a good job. I like that there were multiple twists, just like there were multiple pinches. Like,
Yeah.
I like that you find out how many people infiltrate, and it's interesting. It's interesting because if they're in this position that they have done like horrific things, almost certainly, and then
That's
to get
part of being an undercover agent is you
Right.
have to like.
You got to do it. That's how it is. And so it's interesting to see them like interacting with each other, and it's just a normal thing that they have to do now. And I liked that. I thought it was an interesting way to portray it.
I think this episode has a great pace, and as somebody who always like gets pissed about plot holes, I think they really explain a lot of stuff. They like explain her. They explain the other Enig. His like, you know, because he comes in and he doesn't recognize them, and you're like, what the fuck?
Right.
And you're like, oh, he must. They explain that all of the members of the resistance don't know each other, so that they, you know, if one is captured, they can't bring down the whole resistance. Like, I think those type of plot holes are explained really well.
Yeah.
Potential plot holes.
Yeah, I agree.
And for a Star Trek episode, especially one of these old ones, like some of them move real fucking slow, and this one is like,
Yeah, I thought that the like individual scenes were very good. I thought everybody, again, I just thought everyone did a really good job in this. It's just weird to feel that way about this kind of episode.
you want to talk about what's weird to feel? This has one of the most notorious like horny scenes in it, and it's hard to be like, yeah, the Nazi episode has the one where they're naked climbing all over each other.
And they're like whipped and all that. Like,
And
it's
you're like, but they're naked and they love each other. And
I love the banter that they did while he's like on him. I just really enjoyed that. And also, like we pointed out while we were watching, like Spock is super fucking heavy because he's a Vulcan.
Yeah.
And, like I just really, really enjoyed that. It's weird again to have such like good banter in this episode. Like there's a lot of great banter.
we only see
But
we see Kirk, Spock, Bones, Uhura. We see Chekhov at the end, but it doesn't count. And I think out of the four we see, Uhura doesn't have a lot to do, but what she does is good. And then I think it's an episode that has great character work for all three of them.
Mhm.
Spock is really particularly like pedantic and like cunty, like the best
Yes.
Spock. Kirk is living his like theater dreams. Like I commented because every time he dressed up like a Nazi, every time he sees another Nazi, he like basically gives a performance, and he's like, yes, we captured these ions. And he's just being very dramatic. But like you said, it works because they're like, yeah, okay, dude,
Mhm.
you're in uniform and got a gun, I guess. Bye.
Right, exactly. I liked that too, that Shatner was really putting his theater out there. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that he had that, like, again, it's weird to have like a good vibe of an episode like this. I don't know. It's weird to feel that way, but I thought that he did such a good job of, again, getting past that and like doing that as a like a social currency. I thought he did a great job at that.
The film crew bit is very clever to like blind the light so you can't
I
see.
loved that. I
Also,
thought that
LOL,
was very,
way to steal it, Inglourious Bastards. Just saying.
yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Keep Quentin Tarantino's hands off my Star Trek. That's a different podcast.
Yeah, we can't get into that now.
He was supposed to direct the new one for like years. It was like a thing. It was
know,
like
I
my
remember.
hell. It was just there in limbo for years, and it was a personal hell I was living in. Anyways, go ahead.
Anyways, I mean, obviously, thing I liked was the bones beaming down. I thought that was great. I like that it was very specific about this right boot doesn't fit, and I cannot get it on.
The computer messed up the measurement.
And I also love that Kirk is like, just send him down fucking naked because they're in a uniform. Like, just get down here. We can fix it if you fucking get here.
I also love the moment when they're like, "Oh, he's drunk," and Bones is like,
I've been drunk so many times. You don't have to tell me fucking shit. I'm drunk. You're drunk too. Anyway, bye. I was really far from the mic. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think there's really good character work. Overall, like I said, I really like this episode. Obviously, the most problematic part is the whole like Nazism is the most efficient society. Again, at least they disprove that. Like John Gill, as he's dying, he's like, I made a huge mistake. Non-interference. Prime directive is good, actually, which Kirk needs to hear.
Yeah, for real. He does.
Like, historians fuck up too. I really, really donked this up, and then he dies. And then, you know, at the end bit where they're like doing their like flirt morality or whatever, like they do have that like the single leader is bad and like absolute power corrupts absolutely, et cetera, et cetera. Even though they're being relatively flippant about the fact that they brought Nazism to space.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it's established that he's like, why did you fucking do this? Why would you bring Nazism to Interstellar or whatever? Like,
and he had like, you know, it's like those people. I mean, I know basically they are actually Nazis, but those people who like collect Nazi memorabilia and they're like, no, it's just like a really fascinating part of history, blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, but you need to
also-
examine that a little bit more.
yeah, for real. There are people who buy that stuff and destroy it, and like, I'm all for that shit.
Yeah.
But to just collect it like that is bad.
Not good.
Not great at all.
Turns out.
Yes. Okay. Thing I disliked about this
Go
episode.
for it.
I did not like that they humanized the Hitler character. Like, I don't like that you get this, like, that he and Kirk have this bond. John Gill, yes. That they have this bond and that it's, in the end, he does the right thing and like, denounces it. I really did not like that.
Do take a lot of onus off of him. Like, he's the one that brought this style of government to this planet. And then it, quote, got out of control once Melicon or whatever took over. But yeah, it's really passing the buck.
Yeah, it was a thing that I was like, I wish that they would resolve this with him, like, really having to take justice for this in some way. And, like, he dies, but, like, whatever. That's not the consequence that it should be. Like, it's great that he somehow got himself up to say, don't do this anymore. But, yeah, I felt like it was also to
but
have
there's because he dies, he doesn't have to see it through. He
Right.
doesn't have to face Federation.
I mean, it is
judgment.
like the exact same thing that happened to Hitler in that sense, that he like took the easy way out. I don't know. That made me a little bit
Honestly, I never
uncomfortable.
thought about that because I do think overall they handle the like morality of it, but like once you pointed it out, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I think they thought that they weren't humanizing the Hitler character because they had the Melicon character who was like obviously like
the Hitler,
the
yeah.
Hitler, but you're absolutely right. Like, it is his fault. He is the bad guy. He's the one they call the Führer.
Right, exactly.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that was, I did not love that. I don't know. Again, I liked this episode a lot, even though there was a lot of stuff that I was like, woo, okay, this is a lot.
Yeah. I'm sure you clocked this. They try to be real clever with names. Obviously, the name of the planet Zayon is a take on Zion.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then there's Abraham, David, Isaac, Daras is Sarah spelled backwards, basically. And then Eneg is just Jean spelled backwards because they thought they were being very cute.
Oh, that's so clever.
Yeah. It is hard not to like roll your eyes out of your head every time they say Zayon.
Yeah.
And you're like, you really thought you were doing something here. This is only one of 3 episodes where they mention Nazism. So it's City on the Edge of Forever, the one that we watch, which Spock is wearing his like little beanie from because he kept it because it was a really important time for him. And then they
one bed.
mention Gestapo and Mirror Mirror, which makes sense. They were roommates. There's a bunch of other apocrypha, or not apocrypha, just like facts about like the shooting and things like that. But I mean, we hit the really important. Oh, this part is interesting. The like little video where they see Daras getting the award. A lot of those clips are like actual clips. Obviously, like they're actual clips of Hitler in a car. They're actual V2 rockets. Like they had access to all those that footage, so they were like, "We're gonna make this." Again, they really pulled no punches. They were like, "We're gonna make this feel as real as possible,
As uncomfortable as possible." Yeah. Again, so wild that it's so close to the end of the war. Like that would, for me, I was like, this would be like if someone did like a 9/11 episode, but they were like bantery in it. Like it's weird to think about.
Those do exist, unfortunately.
Ugh, great. Well, I mean, there's that one with Robert Pattinson that's like, you don't know that it's really, he's in one of the world towers, and then at the very end he gets struck by the plane, but he's like in the room that gets struck. It's such a bizarre twist, but it like works sort of, and it feels like one of those things where it's like, this is bizarre, but it somehow works, sort of like this episode.
Yeah. I get why people talk about it in a way that's like, because it does seem wild, but like, I mean, that's what terrorism is. Everybody's just
Yeah.
living their regular day and their regular life until something awful happens.
And I think that, like, that movie, and I think there were a couple of others at the time, hit that hard enough that we don't see a lot of 9/11 media now because it's been done.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, again, we've said it a million times, but I genuinely like this episode. I think it's a good Star Trek episode, and I think it's a well-written episode. I think it's, you know, it holds up overall pretty good.
I love that Uhura got it to work. That
Yeah,
they like
the
got,
communicator.
Right, exactly. I love that she was like, "Listen, you're in a shitty location, but also I'm fucking here. What do you need?" Like, I love that. Another Uhura's always good at her fucking job.
She was not in it a lot, but she always
She
she's
always
great at her job.
delivers. Yep, she's
As
great
we
at her
talked
job.
about, I think in the last episode, she's fucking good at her job.
Yep, 100%.
It's just a fact. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's also a well shot episode. That's two things that both these episodes have in common. I think they're both really well shot.
Yeah.
It's
just there's so much.
It's just the Nazi episode.
There's so many Nazis.
This episode is just us being like, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. We didn't write these episodes. We just picked the theme. But again, I'm 100% right. Like, what other theme would I have done for this?
No idea.
It would have been like silly if I was like embarrassed or like bad if I was like bare shirts or whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
there's no
Oh my god, if this was your Red Speedo episode.
That's what I was thinking. Like, oh no.
flirting in prison. Like, it's not.
Congratulations, there's Nazis. Like, you don't explain that, and then I just sit down, and then it's just Nazis.
The, like, aggressive Nazi episode.
What the fuck?
I think this episode actually needs the theme as like the trigger warning. Like, hey, this is the Nazi episode. Skip if you want it.
Yeah,
if you don't want it.
100%.
That's what this episode is about. Like,
There's no way to get around it.
I'm sorry. Synopsis showdown?
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel like this was a really hard synopsis showdown to write for both of them.
Yeah.
The X-Files one was really hard for me. Turns out Nazis are bad in every corner of the universe.
Somehow an episode about Nazis is good? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Correct. Are you ready for Scully? It's me.
I am.
Yeah, spectral figures are not often known to leave fingerprints. Casper never did.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
We're all doing our best.
We're all doing what we can. Okay, here we go. A man has been hate crimed to death. We see the funeral of a murdered Hasidic Jew and that his betrothed stays behind after everyone left. Suddenly, a shadowy figure is there building a man made of like glop and mud and stuff. Fox and Dana get called in because, oh shit, one of the hate crimers has been straight up strangled to death, but OMG has the dead man, Isaac's, fingerprints around his neck. That's impossible. Scully is like, for sure some kind of act of retribution is only staged to look like it's beyond the grave. Honestly, it is not actually far from the actual answer. And they go to his betrothed, Ariel, and her father, and that man flips the fuck out when they say they want to exhume Isaac's body because, you know, it's like literally inside their religious text that they should absolutely be refused the right to, you know, desecrate his grave. Anyway, I have like really strong feelings about that. Into the next plane, whatever. Okay, so anyway, a local copy shop is owned by a Nazi, like a super Nazi, out here printing hate crime manuals all up in the Fed's face. No repercussions whatsoever. So they like more or less scare the absolute piss out of the remaining two hate crimers by saying the rumor on the street is that Isaac is back from the grave and angry as fuck. And they freak the fuck out. Good, you horrible POSs. The children, idiots, desecrate the grave because they couldn't leave this one last horror from him. And when they discover Isaac's body is still, in fact, though disgusting, they start to leave. And once again, one of them is brutal ass murdered by a mudman. The next morning, Fox and Skulls find a book of Jewish mysticism that has been buried with Jacob's body. I'm sure that's no big deal, right? Oh shit, it's on fire. The only thing that doesn't burn on the book is Jacob's name. Dun dun dun. The agents find him in a barn with the remaining, though now very dead hate crimer hanging from the ceiling. Jacob insists it was him who did everything, but Mulder is like, no. I bet it's this batshit crazy theory that is actually somehow correct. It's a golem. The Kinko Nazi is murdered. He has like a huge fucking Nazi banner. It is also sort of like the Star Trek one. It is like right up in your face. Anyway, he's murdered. And the lady goes to marry the Mudman, who is sort of in fact Jacob, but not really because he is actually dead. And then, well, anyway, the lady says goodbye to the dust. Old friend. The end. What did you think about this episode?
I think this episode is really, really good.
It is really good.
I think this episode is really good.
I like remember it not being like a mid episode during like a rewatch. This is right after the Leonard Bates episode. There's Never Again right after that, and then Memento
Leonard
Mori.
Betts?
The guy who ate cancer, the one that reveals that Scully has cancer.
Yeah.
So there's a couple episodes about this, and so people were like pissed that this didn't address her cancer at all. It was like a completely different plot. And like, I totally understand that. And watching it in the order, I guess I sort of feel that way too. And watching it out of order with this one, it is so beautifully shot. Like, there is so much about this that I really enjoyed. And again, in a way that was like, what the fuck?
It's a beautifully shot episode. It is a well acted episode. I do think it, in many ways, it is a culturally sensitive episode, which is a thing that I don't say about the X-Files a lot. I think learning a lot of Jakob's backstory and the like monologue about the ring that we get from the daughter, and we basically hear that this like small group of Hasidic Jews has been a subject of hate crime in this small town for a really long time, which, you know, does happen. I think, I don't know. I think that they do a good job. I also love that. So I knew it was a golem immediately. As soon as the it's supposed to be clay, right? A golem is made out of clay. So as soon as a golem is made of the earth, and so people technically say clay, but it can be like mud or whatever. It just has to be from the earth. I know a lot about golems for some reason. I knew that immediately. I assumed it was the daughter. But I also really like Mulder had that line, like, it's not born of hate, it's born of love. Her intent was not to murder those dudes, even though, frankly, she had every right to have that hate in her heart. She just wanted to marry the man that she loved for herself, but also for her dad, who has this like tragic backstory, which like sort of fucks up the mythos of the golem, because golems don't act on their own. They like do need orders, but like whatever. I liked it for this. Also, it's technically supposed to be on their forehead, not their hand, but it's fine.
Well, they also say at one point, like, this is incorrect. Like,
she did a bad job.
Yeah.
She didn't believe, well, she even said, she was like, I didn't believe it would work. I just needed to do something. And we, at the beginning scene, she refuses, or she can't, not refuses. She like physically, emotionally can't drop the earth on his body. So like, she didn't say goodbye until the end, when, you know, he puts a ring on her finger, which is very sweet, and then she wipes the first letter off of the emat and then says goodbye, which I thought was like a really beautiful moment. Also, Mulder is so stupid. He learned the only way you can kill a golem is by removing the word, and he's just shooting him. That's a waste of bullets, dude.
Listen, Mulder
Don't you love research? This is research. You can't kill a golem any other way.
Listen, sometimes Mulder is not smart. And also,
it really made me mad.
Mulder also, like, never actually gets to hit anyone with his gun. So I think this was just like, I'm going to hit this dude a bunch. It's like shooting practice for him.
Yeah, knowing that you're not killing a real man.
Yep. Yeah, it's, you know, Mulder doing Mulder things.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think this episode is really, when Jakob realizes what happened, puts two and two together, you know, kind of says he did it to protect his daughter. I don't know. I just think it's a no plot holes, really.
Rare. The X-Files.
Really rare, especially in these type of episodes where they're like doing mythology and things like that. Like, obviously they like rework some of the mythology to fit the show, but every show does it, especially with supernatural-esque things. Like, you know, a golem doesn't take the form of a dead body or things like that. Like, but it works for this episode and the motivation behind it. Mulder and Scully both look hot, and
yeah, man,
have like, or you know, all the acting is good in this. The portrayal of the Nazis is not sympathetic ever, even when frankly they're being killed. You're just like, yeah, ding dongs, like,
yeah, for real, you earned this.
Yeah, when the last one, not the last one that kills Isaac, is in the copy shop and is talking to the like anti-Semitic zine maker, and the zine maker is basically like, why, I didn't tell you to kill them, and that dude's like, literally, what did you think would happen?
Yeah, for real.
Like, you infused me with hatred. What, do you just want me to read a pamphlet? No, I'm gonna go do something about it. And so like, I did like that exchange a lot, because I feel like there are a bunch of people that hide behind free speech, and it's like, okay, yeah, we have the right to free speech in this country, but words have consequences.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a theme in this episode. I think the Jewish scholar, somebody says something about like the power of words, like, because that is, you know, how you bring a golem to life, like the truth of words, the power of words. So that I think is a really interesting through line. But then him being like, yeah, they're killing us and my friends and stuff, and it's like, yeah, dude, you murdered someone. Not that like whenever you should be killed or whatever. Maybe I think you should, but like, it's so wild to be like, what do you think? You think you could just murder someone and have zero consequences?
Mm-hmm.
That's not generally how this works.
Well, they think like it's justified, and so it's like
Yeah.
I won't suffer any consequences for that. And you're totally right too, and he's right that if you fill someone with hate, like what do you think they are going to do? They are going to at some point, like it's just going to explode out of them, and that's suddenly very relevant again.
Yeah. I really wish if I could do one retcon of this episode, I wish that at the end or near the end, when they found the Kinko's guy murdered and they were looking through all this stuff and they found the mailing list of all of the people who he has been sending his insane pamphlets to, if they had said something like, this will be really useful to put these names, like, so we have potential terrorist names somewhere. Like, surveillance isn't amazing, but we do live in a surveillance state. So it would be nice to be like, to tell an audience, like, if you get some of this hate crime stuff, you can be put on a watch list. These names would be great for a watch list. I wish like a line like that was in there.
Yeah. Even
But
handling
that's just
it, though.
me.
Well, I think too, like at this point, it's far enough from the war. It's an episode that really it's focused on grief and on like the sadness of having survived something like this and then doing this again. Like, I don't know. I think that they do a very good job of splitting that up. It's just, about Nazis.
I don't think this episode is about Nazis, though. I just think
That's
Nazis
true.
are in, like, where the Star Trek episode, I feel like you could have, there's no other theme to pick. I think you could have picked other ones in this, and you would just have been like, heads up, there's a lot of anti-Semitism and Nazism in this.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I feel like they're a central focus because it feels like it's an episode about Nazism, but really it's, again, an episode about grief. And
I think it's an episode about grief. I think it's an episode about community strength over individual hate. Because we almost every time we see, not all the time, because we do see Jakob and Ariel alone, but every other time, like we see a lot, like we see a whole community sitting Shiva. We see the community prayer. I think it is important to show that. And we hear so much like, yeah, they vandalized our synagogue. They put out these pamphlets, but like we're still praying and we're still together and we're I think it's important in the face of any kind of ism or hate, like racism, sexism, homophobia. Not technically an ism, I guess.
Yeah.
Never really put that together. It still counts. Anti-Semitism, anything to show that community is more important or is stronger than like individual hatred. And I know that people like hatred can also form community, but like it's a weak community, like we saw in Star Trek. Like it is and in Nazism in general, it is an inherently infighty, self-destructive entity.
Yeah. Because you're built to hate and like you want to be
You're built to be suspicious.
right, exactly. So it's like, well, if I can get these people out of my way, I can just do this myself now.
Yeah.
It's a climbing, rising game. It's not sustainable, actually.
Yeah.
I do have a little apocrypha.
Yes.
Okay, so you were talking about the racism and sexism. Originally, when Howard Gordon wrote this episode, he wanted to have it be a black family that was experiencing this religious hate crime. And in the end, he changed it because he said, Black anti-Semitism is a very subtle and difficult subject, and it's not what I needed in my dramatic structure. I'm like, I like that he wanted it. I think it's an interesting way to talk about anti-Semitism inside of like a black culture context. But I also think it's good that he recognized, like, I'm not going to be able to write this in a way that is going to be, and as it is now, like, soft about how it portrays the characters.
Yeah.
Like, you would have to also build on this like racism that's built into it. So I do like that he was like, gotta hit the brakes on this. Like, I like that he was smart about the decisions that he made. And again, this is like a beautifully shot episode, and so to like have the pairing of like the script works again, sort of like exactly like Star Trek, where
Yeah.
it fits in so well. It's so well written. And it's so well acted. It's just in the face of this Nazism. They also said they wanted the Nazis to be cartoonish, and I thought they did a great job
they
of
are
that.
deeply unsympathetic.
Right, exactly. There is the one scene with the guy with the Jeffrey Dahmer glasses where you do feel a little sympathy for him, but then you're
Do
like,
you?
yeah.
What scene?
Well, he's talking to the one who's like, give me my money, and he's being very aggressive towards him, and like I think in that moment is humanized in a way sort of like the Hitler one.
Because he's an idiot and he's like, well, I didn't mean for you to kill somebody.
Right, exactly. I feel
But
like
he's not doing it because he feels bad that somebody died. He's mad that it's the federal government's gaze is turned on him.
Yeah, I suppose
Because
that's
he
true.
thinks that the government is run by Jews, is what he's basically said.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Anyway, he dies anyway, so
Yeah.
like
As he should.
Yeah, I feel like they did a great job of wrapping up all of the Nazis that needed to be murdered. It was good that they were like, all of these are dead.
Well,
They should be.
I think it's also really important for if we're talking about that this episode in the lens of like grief. She has her full arc of being able to finally say goodbye and stuff, but I don't think that this episode through a lens of grief could be wrapped up if those men are still alive.
Yeah, I agree. Again, this is just a really good episode in ways that I forgot and didn't expect.
It's a great episode. I mean, I don't want to be like watching it all the time because it's deeply sad, but it is a really good episode. And I guess knowing the context a little bit more of like where it comes in the release date order, I understand why it could be infuriating to fans or whatever. But like as a standalone, I think it is a really good episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Would you like to know some stuff about the structure? What the fuck is the name of a church?
Okay.
I was like, what is this called? I've Catholicked it out of my brain. Would you like to know
Synagogue?
about well, it's not a synagogue.
Oh,
it's
it's a church.
actually a church that they converted, but there were like no synagogues would agree to it. They were like, absolutely not. You cannot fucking shoot this
That
here.
makes sense to me.
Absolutely. And so they got like a regular Christian church and converted it, which they did in 2 weeks, and then unconverted it back to the way that it originally was. But they were like literally the only people would let them shoot there. And it's interesting because this episode is very much like pro Judaism. It's not like they're not, and also they weren't like putting Nazis into this synagogue, but they're bringing the idea of it into this.
Yeah, but they also do show Mulder and Scully being culturally insensitive, and they do, you know, I could, even though I think it's handled sensitively, I am not a Jewish person, so you know, somebody could watch it and be like, yeah, I don't like how, you know, this Jewish girl is accidentally a murderer, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's a very complicated subject.
Also, like think of like the history of like like a lot of portrayals in media. I could see somebody being like, yeah, the script you gave me seems really sensitive, but what if you change it after I already said you could be in this thing? Like I could see any group being like, no.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The reviews, they're mixed. There are people who didn't like it, again, because of the order that it's in, but there were a lot of people that could appreciate the fact that it was like a beautifully shot episode. So, this is the episode, we talked about this outside of it, but this is the episode, it's implied that Mulder is Jewish throughout a lot of episodes in the series, and this is the only one that like directly kind of addresses the fact that he's not actually Jewish. And so I think it's also kind of an important episode in that sense, because so many people were like in on this. What is it not? I have never totally understood that. That's not a thing that I like clock or would have thought about Mulder, but it is like a thing that happens throughout the series. And even after this, like this is season 4, and the one with Bryan Cranston is season 7, and in that one
that's right.
It like
he was super anti-Semitic in that
right
one.
exactly. And so it's a touch for actual information about Mulder's personality outside of the fact that he's a fucking weirdo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting.
That's it. That's my apocrypha.
Are you ready for a synopsis showdown?
Yes. A beautifully shot episode, and also there are insane Nazis, which are bad and dead.
A group of modern-day Nazis have to actually face the consequences of their actions. Also, Mulder and Scully are there.
All right. Sounds good to me.
They don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
All of the Nazis die still, even though they're trying to protect them. And she comes to the conclusion that she needs to say goodbye from her dad, not from anything Mulder does.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're literally just there because this is the X-Files show.
Yeah.
But
that's
I
true.
think everything would have played out exactly the same.
Yeah, they could have done this without them for sure. There are lots of
Which is
episodes
totally
like that.
fine.
Yeah, it's
I feel like a lot of supernatural type shows do that because that is the nature of like a monster of the week, or like you go into a community that already is dabbling in mysticism or whatever. Like,
and it's a time where there were 23 episodes a season. Like
Yeah.
at some point you're gonna write something that's like, it's like the one that became the Final Destination. Like you can use those ideas, but also like sometimes they just like, I don't know.
you don't need them there
Yeah.
necessarily.
Exactly. Oh, I do have one thing. The ring that they get married with is that's true.
I've never heard that before. That's like a really beautiful tradition.
And the
Also community
it
ring.
was smuggled. It was like saved from the camps too. So Howard Gordon got permission to use it. It was used to marry 2 of his friends, and so he it inspired him to write this episode. And he said that he directly wanted it to be about resurrection because of this ring. And like I thought they did a very good job of treating it very respectfully, and I like that in the end she did get to experience that, and like I thought that was important inside of this too. So that's my other apocrypha about this episode.
Yeah, I had never heard of that like tradition before, and I think it's like really beautiful. And again, community.
Absolutely.
All right, now we're ready for Deep Throat's mission
Okay.
logs.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Captain, why should I aim at such a structure?
Starting with Patterns of Force. First aired February 16th, 1968. This is written by John Meredith Lucas, who we've talked about. He produced most of the second season of TOS and also wrote The Changeling. This is directed by Vincent McEvedy, who we've also discussed for his 6 TOS episodes, including recently. He's done a couple that we've talked about this season. Fun fact with shooting this episode, all of the interiors for the Nazi party, the booths and all that, that's just the Paramount offices.
The outside and inside.
Outside
I think.
and inside. It is just the Paramount offices,
Great.
which I think is great, both on a budget level and on just a fundamental level. You know, we've mentioned a couple of times of just like, this is so close to the war, and also the deep connection to Judaism that is built into Star Trek TOS through Spock, but also through William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy being Jewish themselves. They were also just uncomfortable at certain points of this wearing these Nazi uniforms.
Though I saw some quote somewhere where Shatner did praise the writing of it.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
All those Nazi uniforms, of course, were just pulled straight from other movies. And
Yeah, this must have actually been a really budget friendly episode because like all of those uniforms already exist at Paramount. They use the Paramount offices. I think the only thing they have the Enterprise set. I think the only thing, no, they didn't even have to create the underground because that was used for
The Horda.
Hordaborg.
The Horda.
The
Yeah.
Horda.
The Devil in the Dark.
Damn it. I was like really searching for it. I'm so
That's
disappointed
okay.
in myself.
But yeah, no, that is the same underground cave
So they didn't
structure
have to
that
do
they use in
shit. This
Devil
is
in the
probably
Dark.
like
It was
a
all
really
built into it.
budget friendly episode. Suck it, Chris Carter.
Would you be surprised to know that episode went super overtime in budget because the pyrotechnics didn't work correctly?
Also very interesting. They do it in Supernatural too, and I only bring it up because it's a similar crew of like knowing when to show the monster and also knowing when to save money not showing the monster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think is really smart.
Yeah.
Not that Isaac was a monster, but I'm just using monster. Whatever.
On a makeup level, you have
Yes.
to put it together.
And
yeah.
an effects level. Yeah.
yeah.
A little more on our John Whoops, I'm fucking Hitler kill.
Jesus Christ.
So we learn in this episode that Kirk studied directly underneath him. He was this professor of history. Spock had read his books. He's also written a few more in canon and also in beta as well. Historical trends in medicine, a few other things. Beta, he's written multiple series of war with Klingons and also World War III and all of that. All of that's to say you don't fucking become Hitler on accident.
Yeah,
You make a
for
decision
real.
at some
To be
point.
like,
And no matter if you're a professor who can say I can do it right
Historians
or
get
not.
it wrong too. Like, bitch, you became Hitler. Shut up.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for real.
Exactly.
In 3 years. They did it in 3 years. That's fucking wild.
The rise to fascism is fast and swift.
It fucking is. You're right.
Moving on to some casting stuff, but also kind of just some general contextualization of all of this. You know, we talked about, they pulled all of these Nazi uniforms from other Desilu productions. A lot of the guys I'm going to name and Stell, said to me, who play these SS troopers and Nazis in this, they've played Nazis in other things. But like, tonally, that's hard to think about, being so close to the war and your soldier flicks and all of that. But also, you have to remember there were things like the sitcom Hogan's Heroes, which ran from 1965 to 71, and it's a literal comedy about American POWs in a Nazi camp that make the Nazis goofy, silly, hapless fucking idiots. So, like, in media, there were also a lot of representations of Nazis as, like, these fucking morons and these dolts.
Idiots.
Dolts. Yes.
We see Bart LaRue in real life as our newscaster. It's funny because Bart LaRue is the guy who voiced the Guardian of Forever and a lot of other like entities that he voiced here. This is the only time we see him on screen, and it's as a Nazi news broadcaster.
Great.
Fucking crazy. As Davad, that's Chuck Courtney. He was Billy the Kid in Billy the Kid versus Dracula.
Cool.
I almost stopped there, but he's got a really cool stunt and acting career through the 50s to the 90s. That's Paul Baxley as the first trooper. We've heard his name because he's a regular stunt double for Shatner, whom we've also discussed previously, but also in real life, he was a World War II Marine sniper with 2 Purple Hearts, and he's in this playing a Nazi. Again, it's crazy.
Wild.
Get work where you get work, I guess.
Yeah.
Wild.
That's Peter Cannon as a Gestapo lieutenant. Again, a lot of soldiers, a lot of Nazis. Also Cargill in Shaft, Billy the Kid on The Monkees, and then did a guest starring role as Miles Standish on Bewitched.
Love Bewitched.
That's Ed McCreary as an SS trooper. We've talked about him before. He had 5 Trek appearances total. Miri, Dagger of the Mind, This Patterns of Force, Omega Glory, and Spectre of a Gun, the only one of those that we haven't seen yet. We will.
That's a Western one?
Yeah. Above him is Ralph Morrow, who plays an SS lieutenant. We just spoke of him because he played Balar in Return of the Archons, but he was a Stanford Meisner student and prominent teacher in Hollywood himself. That is Gil Green as an SS major. A lot of guest work through the 50s and 60s, a lot of military work, a lot of Nazis as well. William Winsole as a Brahm. Ted Ballotine on 45 episodes of General Hospital and 92 episodes of The Young and the Restless as Michael Sherman, spanning from 1986 to 2011.
Jesus Christ.
As
crazy.
Soap opera will keep you forever.
Oh my God. If you can do the grind, because it is a daily grind.
It was great work when you could get it.
Oh my God.
For real.
As Enig, that is Patrick Hogan, English born, so the accent's real, and known to play Sherlock Holmes on stage in several productions. Played Dr. Morrison.
Oh, he has a Sherlock Holmes face.
As soon as you hear it, you're
For
like,
sure.
of course.
Hell, yeah.
Course.
I feel like I've seen in movies or just.
It lists him mostly on stage.
Oh.
But like as recently as
But
2011.
my brain is making it seem like I've seen him because now I'm like, yeah, that's a Sherlock face.
Played Dr. Morrison on 429 episodes of The Doctors. Thatcher Ross on Ryan's Hope was also Danny in the original Thomas Crown Affair. And one of his last credits is a guest role on The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that show.
As our Whoops Hitler John Gill, that's David Bryan. He was a vaudeville song and dance man before going into a Hollywood career. Speaking of another grind. Prominent enough to have a star on the Walk of Fame at a certain point in the 60s. Known for his roles in Flamingo Road, Intruder in the Dust, and Beyond the Forest. As our actual baddie, I guess, Melicon, that's Skip Homier. We've discussed him. That's Dr. Severin from The Way to Eden, the leader of the Space
I was like
Hippies.
staring at him.
I know.
But in The Way to Eden, he obviously has those like big ears
And the bald cap.
And the bald cap. But I was staring at him and I was like, this guy.
He of course he's played a lot of Nazis as well. His headshot on IMDb is him as you see him here, but with like blonde hair. So like very, very evocative.
Yeah.
Jesus.
We briefly discussed Valora Noland as Doris and what became of her and her decisions for her career, which I totally respect. So I wanted to say her name in this.
Good call.
Yeah. And then that leaves us with Richard Evans as Isaac, who is so good in this.
He's really
Yes.
cute, right?
Yeah.
He's not usually my type. I'm not like into like Twinkie dudes, but he's like adorable.
He is adorable.
He's really cute.
Of course, you can see him as so many cowboys and in roles like that. Also, 26 episodes on Peyton Place. Also did some community theater work and playwriting, and wrote an autobiography about his life and his fight with cancer. So, moving on to Kaddish. Kaddish, original air date, February 16th, 1997. It's the same day.
Oh, cool.
What?
Woo.
What?
For this theme that you all picked years ago.
Weird.
With the 2 episodes that you picked for it, they had the same air day
That's fun.
decades apart.
That's wild.
Fucking I like read it several times over to be like, am I? No, it's
I'm
the
not
same one.
hallucinating. That's so wild. What an episode theme to have them link up on. That's so nuts.
Fantastically directed, as we said, by Kim Manners. Written by Howard Gordon, who we've talked about as well. He did extensive work on the X-Files first 4 seasons, so he's kind of everywhere through that. Expanding on some of the things Erin said, with this ring to start. He's quoted as saying, of course, because it's the X-Files, people had been pitching Golem episodes since the very beginning, but all of them were hacky or not bad. He goes to his friend's wedding and he sees this ring and this sense of community, and he's like, there it is. There's my Romeo and Juliet story.
Yeah.
That's how we write the Golem episode for the X-Files. I think it's wonderfully done.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And then expanding on something else that you talked about earlier, at different points, it was protagonist, antagonists, or both that were supposed to be part of the Black Jewish community or the oppressors themselves. This was also in the mid 90s, around the time of the rise of Louis Farrakhan and a lot of Black anti-Semite movements. And then there's kind of a gray area whether he thought twice about that or that came down from the Fox executives wanting to hold on to their burgeoning Black demographic.
That makes sense.
Chicken or egg, either way, I don't care. I think the right decision was made.
Yep.
X-Files has a bad history, not at this time, but extending further on, kind of like both sidesing social issues and hatreds, and I'm glad there was no wiggle room in this whatsoever for that.
Yeah.
Another thing you kind of mentioned, but that I'll talk about more now, is that scene in the grave with Fox and Dana. I don't know why I called them by their first names this time.
Yes, Fox and Dana.
But where
Because I said it in my summary.
Yeah. But where the book sets on fire, they had a fuck of a time getting that book to set on fire in the right place. And so there's a gag reel of take of them like waiting for the book to set on fire, the book not setting on fire, them bantering because this effect that's supposed to be happening isn't happening. It's muddy, it's rainy or whatever. And then the one take that we saw where the book does land on fire, David Duchovny's surprise and like throwing the book down was genuine.
Was real.
Because at that point they didn't expect it to work anymore.
Oh my god.
It made for a long shooting night, but it was a happy one because it was kind of funny and them joking around. I have more in my notes about the Kaddish itself and more on Judaism. I won't read them because I will murder all of the words, but I do have that information for you if you want to look in my notes. There's a dedication at the end of this episode. It says, in loving memory of Lillian Katz. That's Gordon's grandmother. And then briefly we see at the funeral scene in the opening, a girl in a red coat prominently placed. That is a reference to Schindler's List, where there's the girl in the red coat
Okay.
during the funeral scene.
That makes sense.
Moving on to some casting for this, we see Murray Rabinovich as a first Hasidic man. He's also in the Millennium episode, Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense. That's kind of like the loose sequel From Outer Space.
Mm-hmm.
We see George Gordon as a detective. Also an uncredited neurosurgeon in the X-Files episode Avatar, not any of the other things that are called Avatar. A couple of millenniums, Danielle Monroe in the brutal Robin Williams drama, The Final Cut. If you've ever watched that, it's like a one and done movie for me. It's really good, but I don't have to watch it again. Moving up, we will go to Jonathan Whitaker, who plays the douchebag Kinko's Nazi. Kurt Bruness. Brunhess. I don't know how to actually say that, but that's fine. He is Secretary General Gillis on The Expanse. recently. Also, Craig on Orphan Black Echoes. He was in an episode of Xena, a couple episodes of Animorphs. He played Gautreau in Dracula 2000.
We do love Dracula
We
2000
do love Dracula 2000 in this house. He played a bailiff in the movie musical of Chicago, Dresden Files, Lost Girl, and he also recently played a Vulcan senator on an episode of Discovery.
Damn.
So, like, he's got a really cool B-movie
Blonde
indie
Vulcan,
sci-fi
or did they put a
career.
wig on him?
He's got kind of like a dusty, yeah. But yeah, he's got one of those careers where he's clearly choosing niche shit. I love when people do that. That moves us to Harrison Coe as Isaac Luria. Also in the X-Files episode Apocrypha, the X-Files episode Usual Suspects, not anything else named The Usual Suspects, and the X-Files episode Chinga, no one else would ever name anything Chinga. Also a Millennium, a lot of Canadian sci-fi shows as well. He has shots in theater productions of I Hate Hamlet, and there's a very prominent shot of him as Riff Raff in Rocky Horror as well on his IMDb, which doesn't make sense when you look at him in this episode, but when you see the picture, he's clean shaven and he's got the whole like hair. It works. His most recent credit was a movie called Mormon Mom Gone Wrong.
Ooh.
That's Shannon Rowe as Derek Banks, the lead douchebag kid.
I really push back on calling them kids. They were young, but they weren't like, they were old enough to know better.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
Just not to be like, whatever. But this episode's about like language and stuff. And I do think that like kid implies they don't have the agency to make the choices that they had. And they absolutely did.
Yeah. The teens.
Yeah.
I get full fact that Derek does. You don't know enough about the other kids.
Yeah.
And you see Derek very prominently being the one shooting him in the end. So yeah, I agree with you there. And especially since he's the Kinko's Nazis main contact or what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
But he has a recognizable face and he plays a bunch of characters like this.
He has that like handsome guy who is an asshole face.
It's handsome, but it's like pushing Rodentia.
Yeah, it's the handsome asshole like face. I get why he would be cast as like the bully. He has like a perfect bully face.
And so he plays one of the douchebag guys in Biodome. He's in Boogie Nights. He's in so much TV movies as characters with that attitude and that face as well. That moves us to David Wohl as Kenneth Unger, who is our Judaism contact.
He was great.
Yeah.
And
I love an academic that's like, all right.
And like the couple subtle signs of like, well, I'm questioning why you're so interested in this. But
this is a book about magic.
Yeah.
It's not a magical book, dude.
That conversation that they have about like Mulder and Scully trying to figure out how this book burst into flame and him just being like, you guys are weird. It was very fun and endearing.
And then she's like, I don't know, I guess if the groundwater had like
oh my God.
the hoop she jumps through.
Oh, for real.
So he has credits ranging from Hot Shots Part 2, St. Elsewhere, Hill Street Blues, ALF, NYPD Blue, and more. Also 28 episodes as Principal Warts and other voices on Hey Arnold.
Hey.
And then that's David Groh as Jacob Weiss, one of the two people really, really carrying the emotion in this episode. 248 episodes in the 70s of Love is a Many Splendored Thing. Ooh. Lieutenant Stan Walker on 21 episodes of Black Scorpion, 108 episodes of General Hospital, and then 54 episodes of Rhoda, which is the Mary Tyler Moore spinoff, as Joe Girard. Also, Buck Rogers, Chips, 3 Murder, She Wrote. The big one there is Rhoda. He was part of one of the most watched television events of that decade, the marriage episode of Rhoda, where he marries that character, marries Valerie Harper. It was the highest rated episode of the decade and the second most watched program of all time at that time, surpassed only by The Birth of Ricky on I Love Lucy. More than 50 million viewers watching back then, which is
wild.
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
He is from a Jewish family and actor studio student. Also has a long list of dramatic roles and Broadway parts as well. And then that brings us to Justine Maselli as Ariel Luria. She's most known for playing Lieutenant Lesniak on 35 episodes of NYPD Blue, one of those like smart cop, women cop characters.
You guys remember NYPD Blue?
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Also episodes of Seinfeld and As the World Turns and The Pretender and Huntress. She's not Jewish, so she took pronunciations from a friend of hers who was a rabbi to do a lot of the work in this. She cries throughout so much of this episode, and they are real tears.
I love that it's
so
just like the
insane.
like. It's how I cry a lot too. It's where it's like one or two, and you're like, just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And her performance stays so grounded.
Yeah.
She's quoted as saying her morning performance in this was how she felt of her own father passing of cancer. And that weight is so fucking there
Yeah.
the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You don't ever become a Nazi by accident, ever.
No.
100%.
Thank you.
What is she doing?
Say goodbye.
All right. So Holly's episodes tied together. They are both about how Nazis are bad.
Mm-hmm. They both have beautiful shots. They're
both-
well composed in
yeah.
both of them. There's great acting in both of them. They aired on the literal same day.
Yeah.
Ties those two together.
Yeah, I don't think we really have to state how they tie to the theme. It's pretty
Pretty
there.
straightforward.
So, superfan questionnaire. As a superfan, would this episode be on your must-watch list?
No. This would be an episode I would recommend to people, but I would not put it on my must-watch. No.
I think I might. I think this episode is
Hmm.
really good. I like it a lot. I mean, it's heavy, but I think it's really good.
It's really well done. I love that you love this episode so much. This is like Beyond the Sea, where I was like surprised that you were so into it. The one where Scully's dad is.
I just, when
Dead or
these
whatever.
episodes are, well written.
I like the
Look,
ones that are good.
Here's the thing. Well, the thing is, okay, we watch things out of context a lot. So again, I'm not trying to compare everything Supernatural, but like Supernatural, right? I watch it in order. I can get through a bad episode because I grew to have the character attachment. So that show to me is about watching for the character specifically. But the way that we watch the X-Files, I love Mulder and Scully now. Obviously, I love Skinner, but like I would say comparatively to other fandoms, I don't actually have a character attachment like that. So the writing and plots actually do become a lot more important to me, especially, like this episode stands out to me really heavily because I don't have, the build up and the like, this character I love just found out she has cancer. Why aren't we talking about that? Like, I don't have that. So even though I love these characters, this is not a character-based watch experience for me necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Is there a series defining moment in this episode?
The Mulder Jewish thing. Like, it's weird that
Or Star Trek.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's all I could think of was this like insane thing. I'm sorry. That was me. Sorry.
That's okay. You can have one for yours. What is your Star Trek one though?
I don't know. I don't think there really was one. I mean, there was a lot of like cooperation and like the pinching and stuff, but I wouldn't say that it was like a series defining moment at any
That's
point.
fair.
What would you say? Although I just spit mine out. Sorry about
Well,
that.
but I don't have the context for that, so
Yeah,
that
that's
wouldn't
true.
be mine.
Yeah.
Mulder shooting a monster that you can't kill with a gun.
After getting knocked twice on his ass by it.
Mulder and Scully being culturally insensitive as they enter a place of worship.
Yes. I think that's more a running theme.
That's sort of how I view this question, to be honest.
That's fair.
Does this affirm your OTP, which is Kirk in the Enterprise?
Yeah,
technically?
it does not. It does not. That's what I was thinking of. I knew that it was that one.
Yeah.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
There's no point at which the Enterprise is like really in danger. So just them and the communicators. So no, it does not. What about you?
No, I don't think so. It's not like a shippy episode, even though I think they both look. I'm not even like into David Duchovny, but I was like, he looks handsome as hell in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Is this episode a fuck find or a flop?
I think it's a fuck.
I think they're both fucks.
I think they're both fucks.
It's okay. They're not pro-Nazi episodes. They're anti-Nazi episodes. So I
Yeah.
think it's a good thing that they're fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Okay. You can find us on the internet. Follow us at NYD Productions on Instagram and interact with the show using the hashtag XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Blue Sky, Tumblr, and Instagram at Stella Cheeks.
You can find me at insert what you say here. And you can subscribe
You
to our
change it
monthly
every time, so
newsletter.
don't write it.
I know, and this time I chose to read what you wrote for me. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter at nytproductions.beehive.com for updates on things like what we're listening to, playing, reading, or screaming at the sky. That's nytproductions.beehiiv.com. You should go there. It's fun. It's a good newsletter.
You can also email us at extrexpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. I have lots of Kirk and Spock get imprisoned on an alien planet fics, so, there was only one cell.
And if you want more of us, like special behind-the-scenes action, like episode outtakes, script notes, extra podcasts, like unofficial channels, and access to our Discord, which is free and you can just ask about, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NYDProductions, where you can get access to all of that and more for only $1.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for Body Snatch. In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
Extrex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.